How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Shifting Lanes. My name is Hanson. Thank you so much for tuning in. And in this video, I want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the 2019 Dodge Challenger RT Scat Pack with the wide body upgrade. Let's first start off with the good. The first good about this car is the visual upgrades. The RT package now gets you the Hellcat face. So you get the Hellcat hood with the functional vents that helps draw heat away from the engine bay. You also get the Hellcat's more aggressive looking front bumper. And right underneath the front fascia, you also get this front splitter that runs the entire width of the car. It's a simple look, but it makes it look so much more aggressive. And around back, you get a slightly revised spoiler that's been drawn a little bit further back and also draped over the sides. It's a subtle upgrade, but it looks really, really good. And the last visual upgrade that you see is the wide body upgrade. Of course, that's the most noticeable thing. You get wide body fenders. It sticks out a lot. Some people may not like the tacked on look, but I think it gives off a very performance-oriented, modified look. It looks very functional. It's the same wide body package that's available for the Hellcat and the Hellcat Red Eye, which if you're interested in my first drive impressions of that car, you can see the link up here. So the wide body package, that's a nice segue to the next good point about this car, is that $6,000 upgrade. Now before you say, holy crap, that's a lot of money for an option, you're right, it is a lot of money, but hear me out, you do get a lot of hardware for that money. First, you get the wider track. So the car has grown 3.5 inches wider from side to side. Now, if you thought that the Challenger was a big enough car to begin with, lo and behold, it gets a little bit bigger. In addition to the wider track, you also get 20x11 Devil's Rim. This is a gorgeous aluminum wheel, and when it comes in this dark finish, it looks super aggressive. I think the dark finish against this octane red paint looks super gorgeous. Let's do a quick acceleration test. Some wheel spin at second. Insane. So that was a fun acceleration test. Anyway, to continue on with the good of this car, in addition to the wheels, what's wrapped around those wheels is also great. You get 305 Pirelli P0s. That is a ton of rubber. That is 12 inches worth of rubber. It's a square setup, so it's all the same all around. You also get the SRT adaptive dampers. What that means is that you have... let's do this. Woohoo! Man, that's fast. So, anyway, it never gets old. Back to the performance dampers. That means that you get 3 modes. You get street, sport, and track suspension modes. Street is basically an auto mode so that it's most comfortable. It adjusts for various levels of driving. And then you also have sport, which it firms up the rebound and compression of this suspension. And then you have track, which is a little bit more aggressive. Next good thing about this car is the power. So this is the 392, which means that it's 6.4 liter. It makes 485 horsepower and 475 pound-feet of torque. The next good thing about this car is that the Scat Pack also means big brakes. So this comes with big Brembo brakes up front and also in the back. It's got 6 piston calipers in the front, 4 pistons in the back. And with this one, it also comes with floating rotors in the front. So floating rotors gives you a couple of benefits. First one is that it has reduced unsprung weight because it has a steel rotor and also an aluminum hub. So reduced unsprung weight means better handling and just lighter weight in general. The other benefit of having a floating rotor is that you have better thermal management. When you take these performance cars on the track, the brakes get a lot of heat in them, and with heat there's a lot of thermal expansion as well. So if with a one-piece rotor, the heat cycling could potentially lead to warpage of the rotor. So that's not good, but with a floating rotor, it allows the steel portion of the rotor to float with the aluminum hub, so that as it gets warm, it just floats and it doesn't warp the entire rotor. The next good thing about this car is the transmission. This comes with an 8-speed torque flight unit from ZF. These are the same transmissions that you find in the Hellcat and the Hellcat Red Eye, same platform at least, and you also find these in a lot of other FCA cars, as well as BMWs and Audis and Maseratis and Rolls Royces. These transmissions shift so fast. They don't shift as fast as a dual clutch transmission or a Porsche PDK, but it shifts faster than your traditional automatics, to the point where if you use launch control, you're gonna have much better times than just rolling your own gears. But what's even better is that this car also comes with an available 6-speed manual transmission. So I've driven that version as well. I took that car around Club Motorsports, which is a beautiful track. The 6-speed manual transmission isn't really the best. It isn't the crispest manual transmission, but any transmission that forces you to change your own gears is better than any fast automatics in my book. That was weird. Well, that was the brake detection. I didn't know I had that setting turned on, but that was more of a false negative, I guess. 2-lane road, 1 lane going in each direction, and there was an SUV that was coming down, I guess, in a semi-fast manner. Obviously, I wasn't going to hit it. There was probably a slight bend in the road, and it totally thought that I was going to hit it head on. But yeah, that was really scary. And I guess that's brings me to another good point about this car, is that this has a lot of modern features in it. This has the radar-based system, so that allows you to have adaptive cruise control, gives you lane keep assist, and if you're about to hit someone, it'll make that nasty, nasty sound. And finally, another good thing I have to say about this car is that this is a great grand touring car. This is a car that you want to take on long road trips because this is such a comfortable car to drive in. The suspension, when put into street mode, is totally comfortable. These seats are so supple. They're like a big firm couch. You don't get tired sitting in this. You also get heated and ventilated seats and heated steering wheel. So you can take this car on all 4 seasons and it's comfortable. There's also so much sound deadening in this car that I was driving behind a little tiny Scion TC with a fart can exhaust, and I totally did not hear its drone, which is amazing. And there's a lot of sound deadening in this car. It just kind of filters all that stuff out, which also is kind of a bad thing because you won't realize how fast you're going in this car, and you will probably get tickets. Some cars, it's very easy to hear how fast you're going, but in this car, it's very deceiving. All right, so now I've talked about the good. Let's talk about the bad. The first bad is that this is still a heavy beast. This weighs around 4,200 to 4,300 pounds, whereas the competition, even if they're really still the competition, the Mustang GT and the Camaro SS, they're about 500 pounds less or even greater than that. In autocross, you never find this because people would rather have a much lighter car. With the Mustang GT or the Camaro SS, they make a slightly less power, but they have so much less weight. So you already know this about this car by now, but this is the heaviest out of the 3. But I think Dodge is pretty proud of that fact because they've never really tried to make a lightweight version of this, except for the Demon, which is 200 pounds lighter. And perhaps that's really the Dodge mentality, is just keep adding more power into it and you'll do fine. The other bad thing about this car is that it's 3.5 inch wider, so yes, parking is a challenge. This feels like a really big truck. The backup camera screen does help, and with the blind spot assistance, it does help you when there's oncoming traffic in the parking lot or just pulling out of your driveway. So that helps, but it doesn't really help when you're pulling in forwards. This car is so long, it's hard to see where the corners are on this car. And the last bad thing I have to say about this car is the Uconnect system, and that's because I've been griping about the Uconnect system for almost all the FCA cars that I've gotten, because while it's got a beautiful 8.4 inch touchscreen, it's got that high quality glass, which I like, and I'm wearing polarized glasses and it doesn't cut out the display, which is a big plus. But the way the information's laid out, it's very informative, but it's like presenting all the information at the same time. So finding stuff when you're driving. It's just like information overload. Again, it's very informative for the passenger, but when you're driving and trying to multitask, there's a lot of stuff going on here, and I wish that they would streamline that so that there's a better user experience. I do want to make a note that when you're toggling through the different drive modes, there's a nice screen that pops up. So if you go through the custom setup, which is I think my favorite mode, you could customize the transmission, the traction, the suspension, and also the steering. So I think my preference is to have steering, suspension, and transmission in track modes, because that firms up everything and makes this feel like a much sportier car, and keeping the traction control on street mode. That 485 horsepower V8 makes merging very, very easy. And the other nice thing about the infotainment, again, even though I put this in the bad column, I do have to remember that there is Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in this. And all those gripes about the layout of the infotainment system kind of goes away if you're using Apple CarPlay. So I've talked about the good and I've talked about the bad. Let's talk about the ugly. And the ugly is that this is now a 10-year-old car, and they have so many different trims to choose from. They have the V6 option, they have the regular RT, they have the RT ScatPack, they have the 1320, they have the Hellcat, now they have the Demon and the Hellcat Red Eye, which is kind of like a marriage between the Hellcat and a Demon. So yeah, there's so many things to choose from, and in addition you have the wide body upgrade, so it like expands the lineup so much more. They've basically made more or less the same car for the past 10 years. And if you look at the Jeep Wrangler, they've built the JK for about 10 or 11 years, and there was a new platform. And for other manufacturers, 10 years is also a long time before you have a new redesign. So that makes me think that if you buy something like this now, in a couple of years, it might look super outdated because there's going to be a new platform. That's really the only ugly I can think of. The other one that I wanted to mention was potentially the sound. Now, don't get me wrong, this has a great V8 sound. I just love it when you just step on it and you hear all of this orchestra back there. It sounds so amazing. But the problem is that this 8-speed transmission kind of kills the sound. But if you change everything to track mode, then it holds the gears a little bit lower so that when you really stomp on it, you could really play with the sound out back. And you could also play around with the paddle shifters. It shifts very fast. And but again, nothing is like rolling your own gears. It's not just the engaging factor of it, but it's the ability to make different sounds out back is what makes it so good. Again, not really an ugly, but it's, you know, the fact that the automatic transmission just kind of kills the potential of the V8 sound. And especially if you put it into street mode for your transmission, it tries to go into the overdrive gears very quickly, and that's what the 8-speed transmission is all about. It's got 6 normal gears and 2 overdrive gears. So there you have it. That's the good, the bad, and the ugly of the 2019 Dodge Challenger RT Scat Pack with the wide body. Overall impressions, this is just a delightful car to drive. I mean, this is such a great Grand Touring. I just don't want to stop driving this thing because put it into track modes. This car just handles like a beast. Put it into auto mode or like custom, and it just makes this car a much more comfortable ride. This car is also huge. It has a huge trunk space. Dare I call this a utilitarian car? It can be done. You can go to Home Depot with this, I promise you that. I think I'm arriving at the same conclusion that I did when I first drove the Hellcat Red Eye, is that this is the best bang for your buck. This has all the proper suspension hardware. It doesn't have the 2.7 liter supercharger that you find in the Demon or the Hellcat Red Eye, but do you need 797 horsepower? That's a stupid question. Of course you need it. But 485, plenty of power. It's so usable for street daily driving purposes. Yes, the supercharger whine sounds great, and 797 horsepower is a blast to drive, even on these back roads. And when you're cruising, when you're going 5 miles per hour, that's when you need 797 horsepower. You want to let everyone know that you're driving a 797 horsepower car. That's why you buy the Demon or the Hellcat Red-Eye. It's not to go fast, it's to show everyone that you can go fast and you sound nasty doing it. The 485 naturally aspirated 6.4 liter doesn't make the same sound, but man, the exhaust. Step on it. It sounds great, man, and you have to drive it to believe it. This is a great car. Let me just leave it at that. If you enjoyed this video, if you found it somewhat entertaining or informative, please consider giving it a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button down below. There's a lot of stuff going on in the Shifting Lanes channel. We have project cars. We drive various new cars like this 2019 model, and we also go to various driving events. So if you're interested to see reviews of new cars and just the latest and greatest out there, and also our own individual adventures, again, I have the Project BRZ or Project Driver mod. Please click on the playlists linked down below. In addition to myself, there's also Gregson, who does the Project Volvo V70R, and also Chad, who's driving the Project IS300, although by the time you're watching this, it's going to be a different project car. So again, a lot of stuff going on in the Shifting Lanes channel, so I encourage you to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Anyway, let's wrap it up right there. I want to thank you so much for watching and sticking around till the end. So I'll catch you next time.